Adventures of Pipeman on W4CY Radio.
This is the Pipeman here on the Adventures of Pipeman W4CY Radio. And once again, I'm here with our resident expert with some powerful business strategies on the Positively Pipeman segment of the Adventures of Pipeman here on W4CY Radio. So let's welcome to the show, Michael Barbarita from Next Step CFO. How are you?
Fantastic, Dave. Thanks for having me again. So today we're going to talk about mindset.
My favorite subject.
There you go. You know, a couple of weeks ago, I talked about the critical 6 things that you have to have if you're going to scale and grow your business. And one of them was mindset. And it's probably it's clearly one of the most difficult things that a business owner has to face, because the mindset that it took to go from 0 to 250,000 as an example, it's a completely different mindset needed to go from 250 to $1 million and $1 million to $3 million. And part of that mindset is less reliance on you. Part of it.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's so important is that in order to grow, you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Because changes in mindset that are required to grow are uncomfortable, just totally uncomfortable. And if you're comfortable right now, you're probably not growing. And so I have clients, for example, that are real comfortable where they are. The problem is, if business declines and so forth, they've got to deal with that. Because they're not growing, and they've got to deal with that stress. But all in all, they're comfortable because they don't have to hire employees necessarily. They don't have to change what they're doing necessarily. And they're able to get referrals to grow their to not grow their business, but to maintain status quo. And everything's just running along. And they're comfortable.
Yeah.
And that's not a good place for a business owner to be. You have to get comfortable being uncomfortable, because in order to go from that 250 to $1 million or $1 million to $3 million, there's a lot of changes that you have to make, and change is uncomfortable. Change is really uncomfortable. And it's uncomfortable for a lot of business owners. But unless they can get uncomfortable and be comfortable with that discomfort, they're not going to grow. They're not going to progress. They're not going to be able to get out of their own way. And their business is going to stagnate, which the problem with stagnating businesses is inflation. And maybe they can increase their prices according to inflation and so forth. But normally comfortable business owners who don't really want to change their mindset to grow don't even increase prices.
Mm-hmm.
So, because they're comfortable doing what they're doing.
Yeah, you don't succeed in comfort.
That's the issue. That is the issue of this show. That's the problem that business owners have. There's a lot of when they start working with me, they start getting uncomfortable. And I tell them in advance, I said, you're going to be uncomfortable. If you want to grow, you're going to be uncomfortable. And it's got, because there's things that you have to do that are different than what you've been doing. In order for you to implement business and financial strategies that your competition isn't doing, which is basically what we help business owners with in a nutshell, it's going to be uncomfortable because it's change.
Yeah.
And change is uncomfortable. And it's going against the grain a little bit. If you're just copying your competition, that doesn't feel like you're going against the grain. But when you do something different than your competitors, that feels like it's going against the grain.
Yeah.
I mean, the mindset that we had to have when we did a risk reversal where ski the ski 3 times, you don't like it, bring it back for a brand new pair. That took a shift in mindset because the employees didn't like it. Their
Yeah.
mindset was always, the same, and so they didn't like it. But it's up to the ownership to make the decision to implement something like that and take the calculated risk. And it's uncomfortable, and no one else is doing it, and it's uncomfortable. And there's a school of thought out there: if no one else is doing it, then it can't be good.
That's usually when
that's not true.
companies come out of nowhere and blow away everybody.
Right. That's right.
And I think mindset is important in every aspect of life, no matter what you're doing, because your mindset will also determine what happens next, whether it be limiting beliefs or success, and even in simple little things that you wouldn't think matter.
Business owners' minds are full of fear, doubt, limiting beliefs, as you mentioned, excuses. So fear, doubt, excuses, limiting beliefs. These are the mindset shifts that I have to help business owners with in order to implement the strategies that the competition isn't doing that's going to allow them to get to the next level.
Exactly. And I'll even give a personal example of how it works, because it just came up in conversation last night when I was at a restaurant and talking to the people next to me because the hockey game was on. Yeah. And a few years ago, when I was with my skating coach, he said something to me that I took as a compliment that was not a compliment. And he was like, "You never fall." And I'm like, "Thanks." And he's like, "No, not thank you." Because the fact is if you're not falling, that means you're not taking any risks and you're never going to get better.
Right.
And that really is true of anything you do in life, business or personal. That's why they always say, no risk, no reward.
Right. And sometimes it doesn't work out, and that's okay.
Exactly. But
refresh.
Maybe it works out in a better way that you take that risk, you find out it failed, and so now you try a different risk that does succeed.
Right.
That's my opinion.
I totally agree with that. You find out one way that doesn't work so that you can have another opportunity to what does.
I mean, let's look at a perfect example. Post-its. Post-its are like one of the biggest mistakes that ever happened in history that became one of the biggest successes ever.
I know.
Yeah. They were trying to make the strongest glue on earth, and it ended up into Post-its instead of the strongest glue on earth. So, you got to take those risks. Look at inventors, Edison. He failed at at least 1,000 inventions before he invented the light bulb.
Unbelievable. Yeah, no, that's absolutely. And, I forgot how many times he failed. There's a recorded number of how many times he failed.
Right. Look at KFC. Colonel Sanders went across the whole country to 1,000 different places and got turned down before KFC was born.
Right. 1,009 to be exact. He counted.
See? And Ray Kroc. Another story. Right. And look at this. You take those two people alone, and they were like 65, 66 at the time, which mindset would deem you're not going to create one of the biggest successes of your life at that stage in life.
Right.
But there it is. It happens quite often.
That's right. Colonel sold at 72.
Wow.
Yeah. But he started it, but he got tracked. His traction began at 66.
Yep, and then Ray Kroc, 65, I think it was.
Right.
So there it is. You got to look at those examples. History repeats itself. Look at the positive examples, the mindset of the successful examples, not the mindset of the failures.
That's right. Absolutely.
Well,
that's how it's done.
There it is. How do people reach out to you for more mindset that they need to succeed in business?
Well, they start by going to nextstepcfo.net, and in the upper right-hand corner, there's an orange button that says Find Hidden Revenue in Less Than 10 Minutes. And what that is, it's an AI diagnostic. And it will, in less than 10 minutes, it will spit out 3 strategies that your competition isn't doing, and the impact, the financial impact that those 3 strategies would have, along with a summary implementation plan. And that's all free. And so you go to nextstepcfo.net, you click on the orange button that says find hidden revenue in less than 10 minutes, and you're on your way, because it's just a great opportunity for you to understand the revenue that's hiding in your business.
It is so important, and I'm so glad we had you on here once again to help our businesses. You are our resident expert for a reason, and people need to reach out to Michael Barbarita and Next Step CFO for more business strategies. If this one isn't the one you need, there's plenty of others that he can help you with, and their organization can, so you can succeed in 2026 and beyond. We'll see you next month.
Thank
Michael.
you. Yes, that's right. Thank you, Gene. Look forward to it.
Thank you for listening to the Adventures of Pipeman on W4CY Radio.